Some apartment buildings have stories. Most are harmless. A strange neighbor, a mysterious tenant, a noise that nobody can explain. But sometimes, the truth behind those stories is far worse than anyone imagines. This first case began in an aging apartment complex on the edge of a large city. The building wasn't particularly special. It had 6 floors, narrow hallways, and the kind of faded wallpaper that had probably been there for decades. Most residents kept to themselves, but nearly everyone knew the man in apartment 4B, not because they were friends with him, because nobody really knew him at all. His name was Daniel. He was quiet, polite, and rarely spoke more than a few words. People saw him leave for work early every morning and return late at night. Then one day, he simply vanished. At least, that's what everyone believed. The first person to notice was an elderly woman who lived across the hall. She hadn't seen Daniel in over a week. Normally she wouldn't have cared, but something felt strange. His mailbox was overflowing. Packages sat outside his door untouched. Yet every night she could see light shining beneath the apartment door. At first she assumed Daniel was inside and simply avoiding people. But then other residents started noticing unusual things. Footsteps, furniture scraping across the floor, occasional thuds during the middle of the night. The strange part was that nobody ever saw anyone enter or leave. Rumors spread quickly. Some believed Daniel had fled the city and someone else was secretly living inside. Others thought squatters had moved into the apartment. A few residents became convinced something sinister was happening. The stories grew darker with each passing week. One night a tenant returning home from work claimed he heard voices coming from inside 4B. Another swore he saw a shadow standing motionless behind the curtains. Management eventually investigated. They knocked repeatedly. No answer. They listened at the door. Silence. Since rent payments continued arriving automatically, they decided not to force entry. Life continued. But the mystery only deepened. Weeks later, a terrible smell began spreading through the hallway. Residents complained immediately. Management assumed a plumbing issue was causing the odor. Maintenance workers checked the pipes. Nothing. The smell became worse every day. Eventually, someone called the police. Officers arrived and made the decision to enter apartment 4B. What they found shocked everyone. Daniel was inside, or rather, what remained of him. Investigators determined he had died weeks earlier from a sudden medical emergency. The rumors had been wrong. Nobody had been secretly living there. Nobody had taken over the apartment. The horrifying truth was that Daniel had died alone. But that didn't explain the lights, or the footsteps, or the noises. The answer came during the investigation. Several faulty electrical systems caused lights to switch on and off automatically. An aging heating system created sounds that resembled footsteps and furniture movement. Everything had a logical explanation. Yet the truth felt far darker than the rumors. For weeks, people believed something mysterious was happening. Instead, a man had died alone, just feet away from dozens of neighbors. And nobody realized it until it was too late. In the summer of 2018, 26-year-old Ethan decided to spend a weekend hiking through a remote forest. He loved outdoor adventures. He had experience. He carried proper equipment. There was no reason for anyone to worry. The trip began normally. He sent photos to friends, shared updates on social media. Everything seemed fine. Then the messages stopped. Hours later, a single text arrived. It contained only 6 words. I don't think I'm alone. Nothing else. No explanation. No location. No follow-up. Friends immediately tried contacting him. No response. The next morning they reported him missing. Search teams entered the forest. Helicopters scanned the area. Volunteers joined the effort. Days passed without success. Meanwhile, rumors exploded online. Many believed Ethan had encountered a dangerous criminal hiding in the wilderness. Others suggested he had stumbled upon illegal activity. Some claimed the forest itself was haunted. Theories spread everywhere. As the search continued, rescuers discovered Ethan's abandoned campsite. His tent remained standing. Most of his equipment was untouched. The scene felt wrong. Something had clearly frightened him enough to leave. Investigators followed footprints leading away from camp. Eventually, they located additional evidence. Broken branches, discarded supplies, signs of panic. Then, they made a disturbing discovery. Ethan had become disoriented after wandering off trail during the night. The deeper he traveled into the forest, the more confused he became. Evidence showed he had repeatedly circled the same area without realizing it. The someone he believed was following him wasn't another person at all. It was the sound of his own movements echoing through the dense woods. Every snapped branch, every footstep, every rustling bush. Fear convinced him something was hunting him. As panic increased, his decision-making deteriorated. The search ended several days later when investigators found him in an isolated ravine. The tragedy stunned everyone. The rumors involved criminals, secrets, and conspiracies. But reality was far more disturbing. A healthy, experienced hiker had become trapped by fear itself. His final message wasn't evidence of a mysterious threat. It was the final warning from someone losing a battle against panic and isolation. And that truth haunted rescuers long after the search ended. The old school had been standing for nearly a century. Generations of students passed through its hallways, and every generation shared the same story. The basement. According to local rumors, a sealed section existed beneath the building. Students claimed strange noises echoed through the floors at night. Some believed it was haunted. Others insisted former staff members had hidden something there decades earlier. Nobody knew the truth. Most people dismissed the stories as legends. Then renovation work began. Construction crews were removing old walls when they noticed something unusual. A section of brickwork looked newer than the surrounding structure. Curious workers investigated further. Behind the wall, they discovered a hidden doorway. The news spread immediately. Students, teachers, and residents became obsessed. Everyone wanted to know what was behind the sealed entrance. Old records were examined. Historical documents were reviewed. Yet references to the hidden basement were surprisingly scarce. It was as if someone had intentionally erased part of the building's history. The mystery deepened. Former employees came forward with strange memories. Several recalled restricted areas they had been instructed never to enter. Others remembered unusual maintenance work decades earlier. Rumors exploded. People imagined secret tunnels, hidden crimes, paranormal activity. The reality turned out to be much darker. Investigators eventually entered the sealed section. Inside, they discovered storage rooms filled with forgotten documents. At first, the materials seemed ordinary. Then they uncovered records connected to a devastating incident from many decades before. Long ago, part of the basement had suffered severe structural damage. A collapse injured several workers. Officials at the time feared public backlash and quietly sealed the area instead of fully documenting the disaster. Over the years, knowledge of the incident disappeared. The basement became a mystery, then a legend, then a ghost story. But the truth wasn't supernatural. It was human. Real people had been injured. Families had been affected. History had been buried behind a wall. The community was shocked, not because ghosts existed, but because an important tragedy had been forgotten. For generations, students feared imaginary horrors beneath the school. The real horror was that the truth had been hidden so effectively that almost nobody remembered it ever happened. And once again, reality proved far worse than the rumors. Outro. Sometimes the stories we create are frightening, but reality can be even worse. In these three cases, rumors pointed toward mysteries, conspiracies, and terrifying possibilities. Yet when the truth finally emerged, it revealed something far darker: loneliness, fear, and secrets buried for decades. If you enjoyed these disturbing mystery stories, be sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And remember, sometimes the rumor is scary, but the truth is what keeps people awake at night. By the fifth day, hope was fading. Search teams had covered miles of forest. Volunteers checked trails, riverbanks, and abandoned cabins. Yet Ethan seemed to have vanished. Then a ranger discovered something unusual. A tree trunk near a narrow path had deep scratches carved into the bark. At first glance, they looked random, but one investigator noticed a pattern. The marks appeared intentional. Nearby, they found another tree, and another. Each one carried similar scratches. The team followed the trail. The deeper they went, the stranger things became. Several trees had arrows crudely carved into them. Some pointed north. Others pointed in completely different directions. It made no sense. One theory quickly emerged. Perhaps Ethan had created the markings while trying to find his way back. But if that was true, why were the arrows leading in circles? The answer came after investigators studied the area more carefully. Years earlier, local campers had carved those symbols as part of a survival game. The markings were old, very old, but in the darkness and confusion, Ethan may have mistaken them for genuine trail markers. Believing he was following a route to safety, he unknowingly walked deeper into the wilderness. The discovery painted a terrifying picture: lost, exhausted, running low on supplies, and following directions that led nowhere. Meanwhile, his final message continued haunting everyone involved. "I don't think I'm alone." The words appeared simple, yet nobody could stop thinking about them. What exactly had he heard? What frightened him enough to send that message? The answer emerged from data recovered from his phone. Investigators reconstructed his final movements. Late at night, Ethan had left his campsite. Strong winds moved through the forest. Branches scraped against each other. Animals moved through the undergrowth. In an unfamiliar environment, every sound became amplified. Fear transformed ordinary noises into something sinister. Experts later explained that isolation can dramatically alter perception. Especially in darkness, the human brain begins searching for threats. When no clear explanation exists, it often creates one. A snapping branch becomes footsteps. Moving leaves become whispers. A distant animal becomes a stalker hiding in the shadows. As Ethan's fear grew, he became convinced something was nearby, something watching, something following. But investigators found no evidence that another person had ever been there. The only tracks belonged to Ethan himself. That realization disturbed everyone, because it meant the threat he feared wasn't real. Yet the terror he experienced absolutely was. And in some ways, that made the story even more tragic. The forest never chased him. Nobody hunted him. No hidden criminal lurked among the trees. Instead, panic slowly took control. Each mistake led to another. Each decision pushed him farther from safety. And eventually, there was no way back. When the official report was released, many people refused to believe it. The truth seemed too simple, too ordinary, too cruel. People preferred the rumors, the theories, the mysteries. But investigators were certain. What happened in those woods was not the result of a monster. It was the result of fear. And sometimes fear can be more dangerous than anything hiding in the dark. When news of the hidden basement spread, the entire town became obsessed. Students talked about it in classrooms. Parents discussed it at work. Local newspapers ran stories about the mysterious discovery beneath the old school. Everyone had a theory, and every theory seemed darker than the last. Some believed the basement contained evidence of a crime that had been covered up decades earlier. Others claimed former students had disappeared there. A few insisted that teachers had always known the truth, but were forbidden from discussing it. The rumors became so widespread that school officials struggled to control them. Yet despite all the speculation, nobody actually knew what was hidden behind the sealed doorway. Not even the oldest staff members. Construction work paused while investigators examined the area. The entrance led down a narrow staircase covered in dust. The air smelled stale. It was obvious nobody had entered the space for many years. Flashlights illuminated a long corridor lined with storage rooms. At first, the discovery seemed disappointing. There were no secret laboratories, no hidden tunnels, no signs of paranormal activity, just forgotten furniture, damaged equipment, and stacks of old boxes. But then investigators opened one of the storage rooms. Inside were hundreds of documents. Most were damaged by age. Many were difficult to read. Yet among them were records that nobody expected to find. Meeting reports, construction logs, maintenance files, and newspaper clippings dating back nearly 70 years. As historians reviewed the documents, a disturbing story emerged. In the early years of the school's operation, a major construction project had taken place beneath the building. Workers were expanding parts of the basement to create additional storage areas. During the project, serious structural problems developed. Engineers warned that sections of the foundation were unstable. Unfortunately, the warnings came too late. One afternoon, part of the underground area collapsed. Several workers became trapped. Emergency crews rushed to the scene. The rescue operation lasted for hours. The incident shocked the community. But what happened afterward proved even more surprising. Rather than preserve detailed records of the disaster, officials gradually removed references to it. Newspaper coverage disappeared. Documents were archived and forgotten. Eventually, entire sections of the basement were sealed. As decades passed, memories faded. Students heard strange sounds beneath the floors. Teachers passed down vague stories. Rumors filled the gaps left behind by missing history. The basement transformed from a real location into a legend. A legend became a mystery, and the mystery became something far more frightening. During the investigation, workers discovered another unsettling detail. Some of the noises students reported over the years had a simple explanation. Old ventilation systems ran beneath the building. Wind passing through damaged ducts created eerie sounds that echoed through empty hallways. Pipes expanded and contracted during temperature changes. Loose metal panels rattled unexpectedly. Every strange noise had fueled the rumors. Every rumor pushed people further from the truth. When the full story became public, reactions were mixed. Some residents felt relieved. Others felt disturbed. Not because of ghosts, not because of monsters, but because an important tragedy had nearly been erased from history. Families connected to the workers involved learned details they had never heard before. Former students realized the stories they grew up hearing were built on fragments of reality, and the town finally understood what had been hidden beneath the school all those years. The rumors had been frightening, but the truth was worse, because the real story wasn't about something supernatural lurking in the darkness. It was about real people, real suffering, and a disaster so thoroughly forgotten that it survived only as a ghost story. Sometimes mysteries are solved by uncovering secrets. Other times, they're solved by remembering what everyone else chose to forget. And in this case, that forgotten truth was more disturbing than any rumor ever told.